Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan here for a game preview podcast on Inside the Birds. The Eagles have a big game Sunday against the Jets. We got a lot of great intel. We got some injury information. This is a really fun game to preview. And there's some history here on the line, Adam, as the Eagles will try to become 6-0 for the second time in as many years. That has never happened before in Eagles history. And as we will get into it a little bit, I'll give people a sneak preview, Adam, of our pregame show on Sunday morning. But do you know how many teams in the history of the NFL have gone 6-0 in consecutive years?
I've no, it's funny you bring this up because I'm working on a couple of nuggets. We've talked about Sirianni's greatness on the road, but I have no idea. No, I have no idea.
Well, technically it's 10, but it's really 8 because 2 of these teams have actually started off 6-0 for 3 straight years. That would be the greatest show on turf Rams of 99, 2000, and 2001, and the Peyton Manning Colts of 2005, 2006, and 2007.
I didn't know about the Colts. I could see the Rams, but I never would have guessed that. Colts Manning, yeah, they were really
They were pretty dominant. I think they were good for 12 wins a year during the Peyton Manning era. Yeah.
I'm surprised the Dolphins, obviously they have the NFL's own undefeated season. I'm surprised the Dolphins never did that.
Not 2 years in a row, no. Yeah.
Right, with Don Shula. Wow, okay. Interesting.
Now, yeah, the 85 Bears were on that because 85 and 86, they both started off 6-0. 68, 69 Cowboys, 33, 34 Bears. So the Bears have actually done it twice with 2 different teams about 50 years apart. The Packers this is another one. The Packers also 1929, 1930, and 1931. So it doesn't happen very often. That's basically it. And it hasn't happened a whole lot in Eagles history. So that makes this game, for those who are saying, it's the Jets. There's some good history here on the line. I don't think that people really, even us, right? We haven't really talked about us that much, but to have gone 14-3 last year and start off 6-0 this year, to be 20-3 is a stretch of domination. Even the great Andy Reid Eagles teams never really reached.
This Nick Sirianni, I don't want to say I'm in awe of the guy. His ability to cut through the BS and get guys buying, the connection thing, which we talked about basically since he got hired. That's real. The buy-in from the players, yes, they have a great roster. We all know that, but that doesn't make you a winner. You have to actually coach hard, get guys to buy in. The guys got to care, and their collectiveness, like the way that they work together towards a common goal, is pretty phenomenal. And that's it, man. It's pretty incredible what they've done. I'm blown away by a new head coach winning this well on the road. Is kind of unheard of.
It is. It really is. So a chance for Nick Sirianni and, of course, Jalen Hurts, who's won, I think, 20 of his last 21 starts, which is also an amazing stat we don't talk about enough. There's a chance here to go on the road on Sunday. And this is a big game, Adam, because, again, we know what the schedule looks like. We've been saying this for a while. After this Sunday is when, quote unquote, the fun begins, right? And it'll start with the Miami Dolphins the following Sunday, and then the schedule gets a little bit more difficult, to say the least, as we go forward. So that's why it's important for the Eagles to stack those wins early. And man, to be 5-0 and a chance to be 6-0 is just really fantastic. So really good stuff there.
Yep, and they're really good at taking one game at a time and not looking ahead, because you and I know from covering Andy Reid, there were too many instances where they clearly just didn't have it mentally when they should have. They'd either lose to or play worse against a lesser team. Not really this team. I mean, Patriots game, it's game 1. Commanders, okay, they won the game though. Good teams find a way to win, and they still handled their business on the road in Los Angeles. They won by 9. They covered the number. Vegas thought it would be a closer game. They out-talented the Rams there. And now here's the thing: as we get to the Jets game today, as we break this down, it's Friday. Don't sleep on the Jets. They almost put off a huge upset against the Chiefs. Like, Zach Wilson played really well in that game. Didn't play as well last week, but they've got a good defense. If they don't bring it, if they keep this, look what happened to the Bills in week 1. Now, a couple, obviously Rodgers got hurt, but a couple of crazy plays. You never know if you don't have your A game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's a great point. The whole any given Sunday, and these are not the same Jets of Well, the Eagles have played them the Eagles have never lost to the Jets. So that's another historical
Yeah.
milestone that's up for grabs here on Sunday. But I still remember that game, not the last time they played him, but I think back at the link when it was a Luke Falk had to start and Jim Schwartz just went after him with like zero after zero after zero. And it was like 6 sacks and 3 fumbles. And man, these are not those Jets. These Jets are hurting. They're banged up, but they've got a lot more talent than those Jets. So it makes it a fun game to break down. We'll do that on Sunday morning, by the way, 10 a.m. Inside the Birds pregame live. Adam, myself, of course, will be joined as always by Greg Cosell and Jason Avant. And right after the game, directly after, we start immediately, folks, will be Adam, myself, and former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor. Having great stuff. Of course, this week we had great stuff. Clay Harbor and Greg Cosell did one of their best inside the tape shows that they've done. That relationship is really growing and their shows are fantastic. Derek Gunn did an awesome interview with Brandon Graham in the latest Gun on One on Inside the Birds. Got to catch that if you haven't yet. And John DeFilippo continues to break down the offensive tape and really go inside, not just the tape, but the thinking, the strategy, what he thinks of as a coach for our Patreon members, which if you got to get on patreon.com/inside the birds to see it. It's great stuff.
One more thing. John was gracious enough. We took their questions this week, which was super cool. I threw that at him. He goes, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions too.
Yeah. But of course, there are a lot of Reds. Everyone and their mother wanted to talk about red zone. So we kind of shrunk that stuff. I like the way that some of the people asked the questions because it was very creative, how they asked about the red zone. So we formed it all and we asked John, and we appreciate that. And we'll do this as much as we can get John to take the questions. We're going to do that. So as Geoff said, patreon.com/inside the birds.
All right, transactions and injuries. Start with transactions. As we already discussed on the pod earlier this week, Braden Mann was out of elevations. He was going to have to be signed to the 53-man roster if the Eagles wanted to make him eligible for the game. And going beyond, they did. And I was not sure, but I've now proven correct that the Eagles already had a spot open from Cam Jurgens going on IR, so they did not have to make a corresponding move. Now, we'll get into Nakobe Dean's situation in a little bit, but they did not have to make a corresponding move to get Braden Mann on the 53. They did, however, Adam, sign a name I'm quite familiar with, a Penn State linebacker to fill the practice squad, a guy who I was shocked to see go in the 4th round last year, Brandon Smith, inside linebacker. Out of Penn State. I can just tell you this, and this is from myself and personally, because I always ask around on the Penn State guys. Just one of those, typical Penn State defensive athletic testing off the charts type of guys. Great athlete. When you put him out on the field, it's not all there. He was looked at Penn State. You can tell he wasn't 100% sure where to be at all times. Like I said, I was surprised he went in the 4th round, and he didn't last very long with the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, he's long. He spent time on injured reserve before, but he's long. He's got length that you're looking for, but he was a 4th round pick. He apparently shouldn't have been from last year's draft in 22. But hey, good practice squad got to have. You see what you got there. The Eagles have had some really good luck here with Zach Cunningham. Off the scrap heap, that's been a good story. Christian Ellis, obviously, off the practice squad last year, has been a good story in terms of he's on the roster. That's a great story. So here's another guy to take a look at. They've got Van Sumeren, who they paid a lot of money. He's on the practice squad. He's more of a special teamer at this point. So here you go. You could take a look. They play 2 inside backers, so they can take a look at him for the future.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? It gives you a sort of a look at what the Eagles are viewing at this position currently, because on the practice squad, they have 2 inside linebackers in Van Sumeren and Brandon here, Smith, who test well athletically, have the measurables, have the length, but both of them probably personnel sources would tell you, got to get up to the speed of the game. They got to understand the game a little bit better, but that's why you're on the practice squad. That's why you have the ability to learn and grow there. All right. Injuries are big here. And man, the Eagles are, first of all, they're a little banged up at safety again. Sidney Brown has been limited in practice. And then Justin Evans, I mean, this is a guy who we talked about his injury history coming into the year. He pops up again on the injury report, and I think he was limited in practice. Or no, he was
Yeah.
out of practice. He was out, right?
Yeah, let's you're right. Let's get through this.
Yeah.
We're going to start with guys who are added this week, and there's a big one. Oh boy,
Yep.
big one. So we're going to start with Jalen Carter. He was added after Thursday's practice. He did not practice. He did practice Wednesday, or he did practice Wednesday. They had it, as you noted to me privately. They actually had a real practice on Wednesday. They didn't have just the walkthrough.
Right.
So this is not good. This means that his ankle was not feeling right Thursday prior to practice, so he wasn't clear to work. So we'll see what happens later today. It would not be good if he does not work today. I could just tell you the way these injury reports worked. I've covered this stuff over 20 years. It's just not good if he doesn't practice today. So that obviously would not be good because they're banged up. They've got 3 guys at D tackle who are hurt, and obviously there are 2 of them in the top 3 of the rotation. That would worry me a little bit. So we'll see what happens there. So Carter was added after Thursday's practice. Jack Stoll was added for Wednesday. He should play. He got some limited work in the last 2 days, but as I understand, he should play, barring a setback. Now, Darius Slay was added this week. Remember we were saying on our Wednesday show, there seemingly every other week with this team, somebody shows up who was not listed in game with an injury. Darius Slay would be one of them. He has not worked this week. Players who don't practice during the week rarely play on Sunday if you've got a Sunday game. So we'll see what happens today. Even if he's limited, that would be a good sign that he'll play. If he does not, that would not be good.
Yeah. That is, by the way, the first thing I thought of when I saw Slay on the injury report, because it didn't look like he got hurt in the game, was you saying, be careful for the guy who pops up on the injury report who did not leave the game with her. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's worse for fantasy. The worst is for this play fantasy football. It's the absolute worst.
Right.
When a guy shows up with like an ankle injury, that you find out is a high ankle, and and there was no listing of it that he had an ankle injury during the game. It sucks because here's the problem: waivers are due Tuesday night for fantasy in most leagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get your first injury report till Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, it sucks. So it is what it is. Now, still on it, Fletcher Cox. Here's the great news, though: the epidural is clearly working. He took his normal starters reps on Thursday, barring a setback. He should be in the lineup on Sunday. Got to see how he does today, how he responds to Thursday's practice. We'll see. Marlon Tuipulotu, who did not play last week or practice, he got some limited work in today. That's a good sign with the triceps. They could use him based on how many guys are hurting. We'll see what happens today. Here's the big one: Nakobe Dean limited on Wednesday and Thursday. Got to see what happens today. So the good thing is, the most positive thing is he's starting to work back. That's a positive.
Yeah.
We're gonna have more on this on Sunday's show, but to me, unless he's taking a full practice, Nick Morrow would start Sunday. There's just no reason to think that anything else would be different based on the way these reports go. But we're looking into it. We'll have certainly a lot more on Sunday, and then obviously if he has a full practice today, that would be fun because then the Eagles coaches would have to have a decision. We know that Dean's their start of the future. That's not in question, but they have to be smart. Unless Dean looks normal, you should not even think about taking Morrow on the starting lineup because he's been good.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't surprise me that Nakobe Dean started off limited. You know, when you're out 4 weeks and you'd only played 1 game of the year, they got to ramp you back up. It's tough to throw somebody right into the fire, especially with a foot injury on a linebacker. Plus, conditioning can be, you can't really, if you break your arm or you hurt your arm, you can still get on the treadmill. You can work out. You can do conditioning things. It's tougher when you have a lower leg or a foot injury.
Yeah, it's a sprained foot. On your point, it's a sprained foot, and he's got to put pressure on it. So they have to see stop and start lateral movement, and then because he's a downhill linebacker, and you know how effective he was in college at Georgia as a blitzer. He's really got to be able to go forward really hard, and that we'll see. They'll have a better idea. Although today's practice is later than Thursday's, it's still over an hour, so this is their last chance, and they have the Saturday walkthrough. Oh, by the way, they have to 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. If they want him to play this week, they have to activate him by 4 p.m. Eastern, and then clear a spot, by the way.
Yeah.
So they have to be absolutely sure that he's ready to go.
I agree with you. I think that becomes there I guess other things factor in that the decision because they have these injuries now at other spots, right? Do you really want to activate Nakobe Dean if you're not going to play him the full game or half the or whatever? If you're going to limit his snaps, do you really want to activate him and then make a corresponding move and release a player who you might need depending on who that player is. I mean, there are some players who aren't playing on the 53, like Rashad Penny. I'm just saying there might be more than just Nakobe Dean's status that's involved here.
So the bottom of the roster guys that they could, if it comes down to that, whenever Dean is ready, whether it's this week or next week, and they have no other issues, if it looks like it does now, the bottom of the roster guys who are not playing, Rashad Penny, who by the way is fine off the illness, he's available if they need him. Alberto, who they traded for, obviously they don't want to cut him, but again, he's not playing, and he's subject to waivers, so that it wouldn't make sense to cut him.
Yeah, that
because they want to get a look at him. They traded for him, but again, he's just not a factor. Other than that, they have 70 tackles on the roster. They're banged up there, so there's no reason for them to waive Moro Jomo. Tanner McKee is their developmental quarterback. They don't want to cut him. Patrick Johnson is because Nolan Smith is on the team, does not have the role he once had last year. He used to start some games. And Terrell Edmonds, I know he's relegated to special teams, and he's not even the safety rotation anymore, despite all the injuries, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see them cutting him. They need bodies at safety. So it's a tough call here. I don't know where they would go. Well, we said last year in November, they're not cutting Trey Sermon no matter what the rumors are, because they wanted to take a look at him. They did. And maybe they wound up moving on from him this summer. But I don't know where you would go here. This is kind of a tough call for me. I don't know about you, but
it's difficult. No, I mean, I think the obvious move would be one of the corners who doesn't play special teams, whether it's Ricks or Goodrich, but they're young, and you may say, why risk even potentially losing them when I've got Rashad Penny here, who's not really doing much for us. So I don't know. It's a tough call. There aren't that many, as you mentioned, because of the injuries. There's not too many other spots where you could say, I'm fine with moving on from this guy, because you need your safeties, you need your corners, you got even though you have defensive tackles, you need them. They're young, you like them, you're playing them all. So it becomes it's a difficult decision. I mean, at least the way we see it. Maybe it's easy for them. We'll find out.
To finish this off before we move on, see Goodrich and Ricks. And Ricks is not a natural slot. I know they asked him because the Rams play reduced receivers. They're technically, if you're doing stats, you will look at some of these receivers for the Rams and say, oh, well, he's kind of outside, but he's reduced. But because Nakua and Kupp were playing at the same time, and they were spreading the Eagles out, it got Goodrich and Ricks on the field more than he normally would. Now, depending on the match, like the Jets are not going to do that. The Jets don't play the same, they just don't play it the same way. They're coming from the same Shanahan tree, but they don't do it like McVay does it. He does it a different way. Mm-hmm. It's just different. So to me, I don't know if they need Goodrich. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't they release him first? Didn't they waive him first? Or did they not waive him? Okay.
No, they kept. Remember, they kept the 6 corners. They never did.
Did they not cut one of these guys though?
No, they kept them all.
Okay.
Crazy.
They got away with it. Now here's the other thing: is Bradley Roby did a nice job, barring something unforeseen, because he was the main nickel last week. Mm-hmm. That's his job for now, right? That's his job for now.
That's why I'd say, how many corners do you want to have now that you've got Roby? Well, he's still not on the 53 though, but eventually you're going to have to.
Right. Yeah. They'll just call exactly because he's in the evaluation period now off the practice squad. Like they call him up on Saturday. He plays on Sunday. He plays well. He keeps coming up. Then they sign him off after the 3 games. They sign him off the practice squad to the 53. But then the question would be, if someone gets hurt on the outside, like let's say, for instance, Slate can't play this week. Mm-hmm. Okay, Joe would be the de facto starter for him. Who's the third outside corner?
Good question.
Like Ricks?
I mean, you could start Roby as your third out, as your outside corner, then move him into the slot in nickel situations, because he has played both.
And have Job outside, right?
Right,
okay.
And then have Job. That's what I would do.
Sure.
That's what I would do.
Sure. Well, now here's the thing: do you want to overload him, asking him to learn 2 positions? They may have done that already. Mm-hmm. It's going to be kind of. I mean, he did such a good job in his role. How much do you want to give him? And they have the bodies to do it. It's just they don't have the experience that you would need from Goodrich, from Joe, from Ricks. Now, Joe obviously was with the team, right. But I'm talking long time starting experience like Roby does, which would bring up Now, again, they have this game and 2 more to evaluate what they want to do potentially at the trade deadline. So this is something we're going to look into, whether they want to add 1 more corner, because when you have championship aspirations, you cannot be late anywhere.
I agree.
When I say late, yes, they have bodies, but you want experience.
Right.
And you want to make that long run. You don't want to say, okay, is our answer this young kid who really is not experienced? Would rather remember when the Eagles added Corey Graham, which was a great addition,
Yes.
who had something left in the tank at safety. That's what you don't have to give up. We're not talking about giving up a first round pick. We're talking about a veteran corner or veteran safety or both to add for the stretch run. That's something they have to really seriously look at here.
Right. If you're going to part ways with a player right now, he's got to be someone who's not producing for you at all and won't. And that's why part of me wonders and thinks the Eagles may not activate Nakobe, give 1 more week for him to get his conditioning, for Sidney Brown to come back, for Justin Evans to get healthy, and then you activate Nakobe for the Dolphins game, and Terrell Edmonds becomes the roster consequence for it because now you're healthier at safety. But I could be wrong. That's just something that I could see happening.
And remember, Greedy Williams would have been that guy, but it didn't work out.
Did not work out. All right, Jets injuries. Now, I mean, unfortunately, they have a ton of guys who aren't on the injury report because they're already on IR, and that includes Aaron Rodgers, that includes Elijah Vera Tucker, the lineman, that includes their left tackle, Dwayne Brown, and that includes, there's one more player I'm missing, right, on IR for them. Well, I know Kenny Yeboah.
Chuck Clark. That was
Chuck Clark. Thank you, the safety.
Yeah, that's why Tony Adams was an undrafted free agent out of Illinois starts for him. But yeah, their offensive line's a mess. Before we get to the matchups here, here's the way it's going to look as of now. It'll probably be Max Mitchell, number 61 at right tackle. Now, Billy Turner has started a ton of games in his career. They brought him over from Denver. This is a really smart signing because he's played guard, he's played left tackle and right tackle. Mm-hmm. It's something we'll look into this for Sunday. We'll see. But they did Mitchell last year. He started some games at tackle. Becton's definitely their left tackle. He's lost the weight, 55 pounds. I was told around what he lost, which is amazing. Good for him. Connor McGovern's back at center. Blake and Tomlinson is their left guard, and Tittman, who's been a great story at right guard. Now, I do believe Tittman will eventually be their center down the road, but right now they were able to get Connor McGovern because McGovern did not get the contract he was looking for. So he came back. They brought him back. That was a good signing for them. But yeah, the problem is, though, right tackle right now is a problem. Their depth is being tested. And the matchups, when we get into them in a minute, they're going to favor the Eagles once again.
Yes, they will, especially up front, as you're mentioning. Now, there are some players they have concerns about, right? Their cornerback, DJ Reed, is still in the concussion protocol.
Yeah, he started working this week. He has not been cleared yet. We got to see what happens today and see if he can get cleared. His backup, Brandon Eccles, probably will not play. And so what they're probably going to do is what they did last week. It'll be Bryce Hall, not Breece Hall. Bryce Hall is a 5th rounder. You might remember out of Virginia, who's got good size to start. This is important for special teams. Justin Hardy, one of the best special teams coverage players in the NFL. He's got an injury. He has not practiced. He's an only emergency corner. He's really a special teamer. He signed a huge contract coming over from New Orleans, so that would be bad for the special teams. But I'm interested to see what happens if Reed doesn't get cleared and Eccles does not play. What do they do? Do the Eagles sort of say, okay, we played 11 personnel last week, heavy with Wes Watkins back? Do they do it again? That's something they could look to do here because the Jets are not deep in corner if those guys are out.
100%. Good stuff. All right, let's get into the matchups. First, we want to remind everybody that Inside the Birds is powered by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Let's hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino and Resort.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, matchups. Let's start with the Eagles offense against this Jets defense. You know, the Jets defense is good. It's got some good pass rushers. We'll talk about that in a second. the ratings or rankings would tell you, Adam, that it's a little bit overrated about how much credit they get. They're not even close to anywhere as far as overall defense, pass defense, rush defense in the top 10 of anything. In fact, they have the 22nd best defense in the league. So, I mean, the one thing that they've been very good at this year is in red zone, which is interesting because the Eagles have struggled in red zone offense. But other than that, I feel like they get this credit for they have good players. They should be good. They've had some good games, but they're not like a shut. This is not like the Seahawks Legion of Boom defense or anything like that, or even last year's Eagles defense.
Yeah, so they're running Jeff Ulbrich, who's a former NFL linebacker. He's their really good one, by the way, you might remember from the Niners for many years and a couple other teams. But so they run the wide nine, so they can get upfield. They can rush the passer. There's no doubt, but they're not creating turnovers at the rate that I think a lot of people thought they would. So what you're going to see is John Franklin Myers, 91, is really good. Great story. He was claimed off waivers years ago from the Rams. He's been a great story. Jermaine Johnson, first rounder last year's having a good season. Michael Clemens, number 72, is a big dude who could rush the passer. Bryce Huff is really athletic. Was a great story in 2020 as an undrafted free agent. Will McDonald, the first round pick, who had a great preseason, he at some time he will get in the rotation heavier. You know who doesn't play? In fact, I wonder if they'll trade him. Is Carl Lawson?
I know. I'm shocked. Yeah,
he doesn't play because they just don't. They have so many defensive ends. Watch Quincy Williams, 56. He's phenomenal. Is Quinnen's older brother. He is so explosive. I don't know what the heck the Jaguars were thinking when they cut him. That was stupid. He is really good. Super athletic.
Didn't they both get contract extensions? And both Quincy and Quinnen got their contracts
for the last couple of years. Yeah, Quinnen got the big one, and Quincy got his as well. Yeah, so CJ Mosley, I know he's a great leader. He's making a ton of money. I'm pleasantly surprised that they didn't move on from him because he had no guaranteed money left in his contract. But I know he's such a great leader, and Joe Douglas knows him from his days with the Ravens. So he's there. So they're disciplined. They just don't make a lot of big plays. But I'll tell you what, they play their butts off against the Chiefs, and I thought that Mahomes had two inexplicable interceptions, which I'm like not like him to make bonehead throws, but their defense is disciplined. It's just on your point. They're not making a ton of big plays. In week one, Josh Allen, again, just dumb throws.
Right.
He lost that game for them. As great as Josh Allen's been since then, he made a lot of bad decisions, but it's a sound scheme.
Yeah.
But look, with DJ Reed Hurd, who's terrific, who's really revived his career. He was not very good with the Niners. Really good with Seattle his final couple of years. Turned his career around. It's been great for the Jets, who signed a deal with more than $11 million a year. He's been really good. But again, it comes down to who's available as well.
Yeah. So this Jets defensive front, they have Jermaine Johnson, they have Quinnen Williams, they do have Will McDonald. So they've got some talent and they do play hard. They're a good front. They have not hit, like you said, they have not made the splashy play. They have not hit quarterbacks as much as you would want the Jets fans would like them to do. I think
I'm surprised.
Williams only has 2 sacks. Jermaine Johnson only has 2 sacks. But I will say this, the Eagles can't take the same approach as they did last week where they would put 2 and 3 bodies on Aaron Donald, because you can't put 2 or 3 bodies on Quinnen Williams and think that everybody else can get blocked up. The Rams really only had Aaron Donald to worry about. The Jets do have more bodies that you have to be concerned with. You can't just dedicate all resources, all hands on deck to Quinnen Williams. So, and plus Quinnen Williams doesn't move around nearly as much as Aaron Donald does. So this is actually going to be, in my mind, a better test for Sua Opeta, because Williams is going to probably line up across from him pretty much all the time, and he's not going to have 3 guys helping him out on Quinnen Williams. He's going to have to handle it himself.
For his size, his quickness is remarkable, and he was very immature to start his career. He was drafted by Mike McCagnon, the former general manager, who's now actually representing coaches.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Quinnen Williams, over the last 3 years, has taken this game to another level. He's really grown up. He's been phenomenal. Signed, obviously, as you said, a mega extension. And if you're able to watch him in Hard Knocks, this dude brings it. He sometimes it takes guys to mature, out of their early 20s. As he got older, he's actually talking to Jets, a real leader for them. Like he's really grown up. It's been a great story. And Quentin Jefferson's the other D tackle. He's bounced around from a bunch of teams. The Seahawks cut him. Al Woods, another guy the Seahawks cut. He's there. Solomon Thomas, you'll see he was in the rotation, so they got a nice rotation. This is a really good front. I mean, you don't really key on any one guy. It's just that they do play the wide nine. The Eagles obviously know about this. That they've gone against it, and they'll be okay. They'll handle it well. I'm just interested to see what the Jets try to do to break down the Eagles' protection.
Yeah. Now the interesting thing will be to see how they attack vertically against Sauce Gardner, who does not switch sides. He only plays one side of the field.
Yeah.
He is very good. I don't think he's off to the same start that he had last year, but he's still really, really good corner. So you wonder if, because you know that he'll be always on one side, do the Eagles try to put bunch formations on the other side? Do they try to come out with maybe a little more 12 personnel, get their run going, game going, or their shorter game going to set up maybe some later shots down the road? But I'm curious to see if they take the attitude where the Eagles will throw on anybody, or if they say we're just going to out scheme them and try to attack other areas of their secondary.
Yeah, so this is interesting. 2 years ago, Goddard really smoked them. It's the same defense. So now I know Minshew played that game. I remember you and I were doing something from Rivers Casino.
Yep.
Like one of the casinos. And I remember wow, Goddard ran right through the secondary. It was pretty interesting in their cover three, how their zone coverages, how he got open. So, I know things changed. That was 2 years ago, and the personnel is better right now. Boy, their personnel is really good. And Jordan Whitehead's a good player. Came over from Tampa Bay. We mentioned Tony Adams has been a good story. Adrian Amos, you might remember, a longtime starter for the Bears and Packers at safety. He's there as well as a third safety. But because Sauce is only on the left, I'm interested to see how they attack it. Well, Michael Carter, the other Michael Carter, who's on defense he's really good. He's one of the better young nickels in the NFL, number 30. He's really good. It won't be easy. Like they are not a team you could score a lot of points against. It's going to be fascinating to see what the Eagles do, because this is a different defense than they faced. Because they faced so many Fangio schemes. It's been crazy how much that's or a lot or derivatives of it. I'm interested to see what their approach is.
You're right. The Cowboys game week 2 was kind of an outlier for them. I mean, Zach Wilson was not good. They lost 30-10. But ever since, they lost to the Patriots, but they only give up 15 points. They lost to the Chiefs, but they actually played fairly better in that. Well, for the Chiefs, really they gave the Chiefs a good game. They lost.
Played great.
Yeah, they gave up 23 points, and then against Denver, they gave up 21. So they really haven't been scorched since they played the Cowboys. So, but I would say the Eagles' offense comparatively is pretty darn good. So this will be a test for them. I do think the Eagles wind up alternating in and out of 11 and 12 to try to choose the right matchups.
Okay.
And I listen, if you're going to play the wide nine against the Eagles and you're going to stretch that defensive end out and create a lot of space in the B gaps, it would not surprise me if the Eagles try to get their run game going into the teams did this against the Eagles back in the day when Babin would line up wide nine and have no interest in playing the run, right? They would just run right at him, let him get upfield.
They're disciplined. I would tell you.
I know. I was just making the point that there is space, though. You do get some space when you spread that defensive end out, because then the linebackers have to come in. The Eagles are really good at getting their linemen into the second level and covering up linebackers.
They actually, the Dallas game, the reason why they gave up 30 points is simple. It's 3 and out for their offense. They couldn't move it, and their defense. But do you know, this is insane. The Jets offense in that game against Dallas possessed the ball for less than 18 minutes.
That's crazy.
He was so bad, Wilson, in that game. He made one great throw to Garrett Wilson on the crosser for the touchdown, but he was horrendous in that game.
Yeah.
But getting back to just as we finish the Eagles offense off, that's the thing on your point. Like, that to me is interesting, because Watkins is back. We're still waiting for him to make that big play where they throw it downfield, running that 9 route or that post route. That's why he's still here. And they need to get that done, but they got to be able to protect. And the Jets have this really good front. They're really disciplined. Ulbrich does an excellent job. He'll probably will be a head coach someday. It will not be this is going to be an economy of points in this game. It will not be easy to score. Nobody goes off against this defense. The only way that they could really run it up is if it's just like that Cowboys game where the Eagles defense shuts down Wilson, gives them bad field position. The Eagles get great field position. Okay, well then that could happen. Any team could do that. Any team could score on a short field. Boy, that game, I just remember turning it off like, this is disgusting. Like, this is like really bad football.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But there's a good chess match here. That's a good point.
Jets have the 4th worst rushing defense in the league, allowing almost 150 yards on the ground per game and 4.48 per carry, which is about.
Pollard got them. Pollard's yards per carry was not good in that game because he had short yardage carries, which takes it down. But he had some nice runs in that game. Yeah, it's
Pacheco had some good ones too, right? Didn't he kind of ate him up a little bit?
Yeah, but the thing, it's so hard to throw on those guys to make big plays.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's why I kind of think you might see some 12 and some running and some short passing and taking your shots later when you find better. When you start to wear them down, you take your shots.
Gainwell had a really good game against them 2 years ago. I remember that, and he actually scored against them.
Yes, that's correct. All right, so that's the Eagles offense against the Jets defense. Let's talk about this Eagles defense against the Jets offense. I think you've already made the point many times. This starts up front, and if Jalen Carter doesn't play, that's a loss. But if Fletcher Cox does play, then it's sort of like, all right, you're still dominating an offensive line that is really patchwork at the moment, and trying to get by without having another injury. This is where the Eagles have to control the game.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they have enough quality depth. Again, depth is not how many guys you have, it's how many guys you feel good about playing. There's a big difference, as coaches will tell you. And the thing is, they have a legit 5 guys who absolutely could contribute. I mean, right away. So if something happens, if Carter cannot play, you've got Milton Williams, who's terrific. We cannot talk about him enough. Drew Davis, obviously. Now, I know Davis's weight is down. I as Cosell said, Greg said that first 3 games great, 4th game did not play well at all. Greg was very upfront. He said he just did not play well at all in the 4th game against Washington. So we'll talk more about what this last game looked like on Sunday's pregame show. But you got Davis, Cox hopefully will play. You got Milton Williams is terrific. You got Kentavious Street who could help. He's there. That's why they brought him in. And Tui Pelotu obviously he's flashed a little bit when healthy. So they're fine. It's just that Carter's been so dominant. His pressure rate is ridiculous. That's a legitimate. People throw out pressure rate sometimes not understanding really what they mean. You just don't get the people that I trust to grade defensive lines. They don't always trust PFF stuff, but they trust. I've been told by multiple coaches that I know around the league, it's legit. Their pressure rate numbers are legit. They do a good job, they think, in putting those numbers out. And you got to get really close to that quarterback to get a pressure number. And it's not like if you're like a yard away, that doesn't count. You have to get pretty close to him. And Jalen Carter's just ridiculous. And his motor, I mean, I know there were questions about his workout at Georgia, which is the pro day workout. People had some questions about him. Those are all out the door, man. This is a remarkable story.
Yeah, it is remarkable. It really is. And what's more remarkable is that the rest of the NFL let it happen too. That they let Jalen Carter get to the Eagles. But hey, it's happened before. It's like the whole Warren Sapp thing, right?
I'm not stays out of trouble. Right?
Yeah, as long as he stays out of trouble. I'm not really that worried about it because I think the Eagles are gonna dominate this game at the edges. I think Hassan Reddick is back. He's got 2 sacks a game in the last 2 games. Josh Sweat, I swear, nobody does a better job without really appearing on the stat sheet as much as Josh Sweat. He was a force last week, and I don't know if anybody talked about him. He was not until I watched the All 22 did I notice how just disruptive up front that he was against the run and the pass. And so those two against Mekhi Becton and whether it's Billy Turner or the other right, Max Mitchell, to me it's like almost no contest. I think the Eagles will have the advantage there and force Zach Wilson to make some throws. And Zach's looked a little bit better over the last 2 weeks. He's a little bit more accurate, but he's not
last week.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. Some of the score, the way they won looked deceiving against Denver, but this is an area where I think the Eagles go in and say, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Desai dialed up the pressure a little bit too, because he's actually done that the last 2 games more than the first 3. His blitz percentage right now, Adam, is up around close to 25%, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but Gannon was at 22, and that 3% is a pretty big deal. That's like 1 or 2 extra blitzes per game that can really hurt.
Yeah, on that point, it's the timeliness of blitzes. It's not how much you blitz, it's when you do it.
Totally agree.
And that to me is coaching 101. And decides it. He's really good. I mean, I still don't know what the hell happened at the end of the Washington game to put it in the fourth quarter into overtime when the DBs backed off. I just don't know why they did that.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people had questions. We saw the questions. We all do. Still haven't got a straight answer, but he's done a nice job. He's using personnel well. I love you and I were talking about this on the Wednesday show. I love his usage of personnel there. The coverages on the back end. You can't confuse Stafford, but they threw a lot of different looks. I thought that was really smart. And on your point, let's move this forward. This is what you do against a young quarterback. Wilson, I give the kid credit against the Chiefs. It shocked me how he brought the team back. That was a really impressive last week. Was not as good. This kid's he plays way too fast in like 5 cups of Starbucks. He needs to slow down. And you make a great point. I get after him. Again, it's not how much you blitz, it's how you do it. And you just talked about it. The issue they have at right tackle, I exploit that. No Barrett Tucker, no Dwayne Brown. Becton, I know he's lost his weight, but he still doesn't move all that great.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Stunts, TE stunts. Eagles are good at those when they do them. This is a game where Desai can get things rolling.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, I think he's doing something differently each week. This past game, I didn't notice it again, and I forgot to mention it on our Wednesday pod. Brandon Graham lined up over the head of the center and rushed from a zero technique standpoint. Not a lot, but there was at least one, and might have been another time where he did it. So I'm like, I don't remember that. And then that clued me into like 2 weeks ago against Washington is when we saw Nolan Smith play a little bit of that, I think, off-ball linebacker role. Yeah. So each week he's starting to introduce something that you didn't see the week before. That's really good coaching. When I
love that.
The unscouted looks that the Eagles coaches are always talking about. Now other teams are talking about it with the Eagles defense, and I think that's really cool.
And you can do that on offense by using players in trick plays or actually using motion, stuff like that, which Sirianni, it's my one criticism left. I don't have much left in my bag of criticisms. I'm pretty much out. He's so good, but just finish this thing off. I mean, to me, this is a perfect opportunity to do some things this kid hasn't seen. And he's a young quarterback. He hasn't played a lot of football at this level. So this is a game they should not have any problems with. I mean, I could see it being a low-scoring game, but Zach Wilson's not ready for what this side.
No. The one thing I would like to see from the Eagles defensive backfield, the slot is the slot. We know. We'll see what Roby can do if he gets more time. But Darius Slay and James Bradbury back at the outside corner, they got to pick it up a little bit. They haven't had their best games the last 2 weeks. You can understand it with all the moving parts. I can give Bradbury a little bit more of a break too. Slay's better than he's played the last 2 weeks. So whoever's got Garrett Wilson this week, you just hope that the pass rush does its job and you don't have to cover for more than 3 seconds. But hey, that's why you're a high paid corner too. If you got to cover for more than 3 seconds, cover.
Yes, and one other guy I want to mention. You mentioned Garrett Wilson is terrific. Obviously, we need to mention him. Watch for Tyler Conklin, who is a super underrated tight end, athletic and can block. He's a two-way tight end, number 83. When the Jets did their analytical write-up on him coming over from Minnesota, they thought he'd fit so well in the West Coast offense at Hackett's running. And he had a nice season last year, but the problem is because Wilson did not process well enough. He left so many plays like 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. Well, Conklin and this West Coast offense could run after the catch. That's what this offense is predicated on. So that's a guy who's done a nice job for them. Very underrated player. CJ Uzomah, their wide tight end. Mm-hmm. You'll see him. And obviously we have to mention one more guy, Breece Hall. I love this kid. This is such a stud running back. He's off the injury report. He took over full time. Dalvin Cook, by the way, does not look the same coming off the injury. He's slowing down a little bit. Breece Hall is really good. I know the Eagles have arguably the NFL's best run defense, but he also catches the ball number 20 very well.
Yeah, hey, listen, these are the two big matchups, right? The Jets are going to try to get their stud running back, Breece Hall, against this Eagles number 1 ranked rush defense. So something's got to give there. And on the other side, the Eagles have had a struggling red zone offense, and they're going up against the Jets, who have the number 3 red zone defense in the league. So those are the two matchups right there that are going to help decide this game. And now you and I are going to sort of decide this game in a second. First, we want to remind everybody about our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation. Let's also pause and hear from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, be sure to tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, Adam, I put the spotlight on you first. Do the Eagles get to 6-0 for the second time in 2 years?
Well, one thing on that we didn't mention, and which will play into this game today or Sunday, is special teams. You mentioned Braden Mann being signed off the practice squad. This kid, Xavier Gibson, an undrafted free agent out of, I think it's Stephen F. Austin.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm right. Stephen F. Austin.
Okay.
He's terrific. Like, don't let this guy, he could be a home wrecker. Now, their coverage, we don't talk about special teams at all, really, but it's important in this game. They got Thomas Morstead, veteran punter, Gibson, who's a really good returner. He's already had a touchdown. So keep that good coverage up. And because I trust their coaches now, they're doing such a great job. They've got one of the best special teams returners. Of course, with Covey as a punt returner. The punters, Mann's done a better job lately. They're in good shape here. Here's what I got. I got it. The Eagles 23, the Jets 13.
Eagles 23, Jets 13.
Yeah.
I like that score. All right. By the way, the Eagles are 7-point favorites with an over-under of 41. So 23-13 is a third. You went back to being typical Adam Kaplan. You took the under,
of course,
but you do have a cover.
But of course, last week I went over for the first time, like 3 years. I went over, and of course, they had all those damn long drives. Teams were going back and forth in the first half, but not enough scoring. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. By the way, speaking of Stephen F. Austin, do you remember who else went to Stephen F. Austin?
The linebacker, like Trot.
Yeah, Jeremiah Trotter out of Stephen F. Austin.
So,
good call.
It's the only guy I could think of. I don't know anyone else who went there.
Well, these two. I think this game is going to start off a little slow, but by the end, it's sort of like the Rams game. But I do think the Eagles are going to have a little bit more pull away in the second half. I'm going to say Eagles 31, Jets 16. It's probably going to be like, I think it's going to be like 23-16 through three quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, they are going to ratchet up that run game and just bulldoze the Jets defense. I really believe that's because what's going to happen is I think the Jets are going to turn the ball over and it's going to put their defense on the field too much. So I expect that the defense is going to get tired and the Eagles are going to steamroll them by the time the fourth quarter comes along.
What's the score again?
31-16.
31-16. Okay.
Yeah. So that's over the 40, what I say 41. So it's
okay.
There. Yeah.
2 years ago, the score was 33-18 at that same stadium in week 13.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, because as soon as you said, I said, wait, what score? Did he say 31? Because wasn't it an odd score? It was 33-18. I love when someone will put a score dammy, someone put on Twitter, like, yes, this has never happened before. This score right here.
Yeah, well, you know what? It makes sense because this Jets team is about 3 times better than that one, but this Eagles team is about 3 times better than that one from 2 years ago. So it makes sense that the score would be pretty similar there.
Sirianni's first year. That's right.
That's right. All right. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. Of course, we will have you on the pregame show at 10 a.m. on Sunday. Looking forward to that. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.